What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I'm going to be comparing the two different RPGs that we have access to in Warzone to see which one is best. I've been hearing a lot of rumors since the Cold War integration that the Cold War version of the RPG is way better than the Modern Warfare RPG, and I've been hearing a lot of claims about it, like it's more accurate, or it deals more damage, or it has a larger damage radius. And one that I've heard a couple times recently is that the Cold War one ignores EOD, whereas the Modern Warfare version doesn't ignore EOD. So this is obviously very interesting to me, and I wanted to put all of this to the test to find out if any of this is actually true and to see which one of these RPGs is better to use. And the first thing we're going to take a look at, this is one of the biggest things, this is the damage and the explosive radius. Now this was quite difficult to test, so I hope you guys can really appreciate the amount of work that I put into doing this. But as you can see, with both of these, our maximum hit potential is 9.3 meters in Warzone. So they are equal in that sense, and also the amount of damage they're dealing on that outer edge of their damage radius is the same as well, at 50. Now that 50 damage is actually consistent all the way until you get to 4.3 meters with the Cold War RPG, or 4.4 meters with the Modern Warfare RPG. So technically, as far as I can tell based on my testing, keeping in mind this is all hand tested, if anything, the Modern Warfare RPG has a very slightly larger damage range when it comes to your ability to deal more than 100 damage with a rocket. So this is the radius where you'll be able to kill an enemy player that has full health but no armor plates equipped if they're not using EOD. But taking a look at the next radius here, this is the radius where you're able to get a one-hit kill on an enemy that has full health and full armor but no EOD equipped. And with this, the Modern Warfare range is 2.7 meters, whereas the Cold War's RPG range is 2.6 meters based on my testing. So again, it does appear that, if anything, the Modern Warfare RPG has a very slightly larger damage radius. But also keep in mind, this is sort of within the margin of error, so it's very possible that these are literally identical, and I was just seeing a very slight measurement error here. So yeah, when it comes to our damage and damage ranges, these appear to be basically exactly the same. Keeping in mind, I was also dealing the same amount of damage within each one of those damage areas. As for if the enemy is using EOD, these both work exactly the same, and the same as other explosives as well. If the enemy has EOD and any armor plates equipped, if you're not direct impacting them with this launcher, at most, what you're going to be able to do with the first shot is take off their armor. It won't affect their health at all, just their armor. Unless they're using the riot shield combined with EOD, if you do that, then there's still a weird bug that goes on in Warzone where that riot shield basically just cancels out your EOD perk for you, so you don't want to be combining those two. But aside from those situations, in normal situations where an enemy player has EOD, the first shot at most will just take their armor off unless you direct impact them. And then after that, assuming they don't get armor back on, the second shot, that's where you're actually dealing damage to their health. And it works exactly the same with the Cold War as well as the Modern Warfare RPG. Now, while we're still on the topic of damage, I also wanted to mention that I did test these RPGs against vehicles as well, and it seems to take the exact same number of rockets to kill each of the vehicle types, so there is no difference here either. So far, everything appears to be equal. The next thing I wanted to look at is how straight do these rockets shoot? So what I did here is I just aimed at the exact same point with both of these, and I fired a full capacity of rockets here. And after looking at this footage over and over again, and also performing this test multiple times, they do appear to be pretty much identical here as well. There isn't any significant benefit to using one over the other when it comes to your accuracy with the shot. And surprisingly, they're both very accurate as well. You do get the odd sort of flyer where it'll go off in a weird direction, but for the most part, these fly pretty straight in Warzone. Now, accuracy is one thing. What about the velocity of the rocket? If you have the same accuracy, but one fires the rocket faster than the other, then you probably want to be using the one that has the higher velocity because the rocket's going to get there sooner, so you have to lead your target less. And it turns out in this area as well, they have equalized the velocity. Your rockets will travel at 50 meters per second with both the Cold War as well as the Modern Warfare RPG. So far, everything's really been shaping up to be basically identical between these two, and you can use one or the other and it's going to perform basically the same. However, there is one very key difference here. This is the last thing that I tested with these, and this is your rate of fire. How quickly can you reload these and get your next shot off? Because in most situations in Warzone, you're typically going to be firing at least 2 rockets at somebody. If you're trying to clear out an attic, for instance, Usually, your first shot's going to be to peel their armor off, second shot's going to be to down them, and then maybe even a third shot to try and finish them off while they're downed, or at least significantly hurt them, or push their teammates away so they can't res them. So getting that follow-up shot off quickly is definitely important, and it turns out they're not equal in this area. The rate of fire with the Modern Warfare RPG is 26 rounds per minute, whereas with the Cold War RPG, it's 20 rounds per minute. So you actually have a noticeably faster fire rate with the Modern Warfare RPG, and then pretty much every other stat that I can think of is equal to the Cold War RPG. So unless there's some weird bug or something that I'm missing where maybe there is some kind of an advantage to using the Cold War RPG, it's actually quite obvious that the Modern Warfare RPG is superior. And this is why, at this point, I don't see any reason to ever use the Cold War version of the RPG. The Modern Warfare version is simply better. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I'd like to know in the comment section below, what do you guys think about how they balance these two RPGs against each other? Personally, I don't think it makes any sense balancing-wise. I think they should be a little bit different in maybe a couple areas, but there should be pros and cons to using each of them rather than having one that is clearly just better than the other one. Like, maybe give the Modern Warfare RPG that faster fire rate, but then give a faster velocity to the Cold War version, or just something at least. Make sure there's some reason to use the Cold War RPG, because right now, there really isn't one. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.